Okay, now let's take a look at the into a storage account. The two main services, the Blob Storage and the FileStorage. And let's move on to the Azure Portal. We're just creating a storage account, the storage account of video that I just recently created. We can click on that storage account, and we can see in the overview blade for the storage account the basic configuration. We have for the replication option, the redundant storage. I just pick for the type of storage account a general purpose version 2, so we should see the four main services. If I scroll down, we can see the blob storage, file storage, table, and queues. Okay, let's take a look first at the settings. And for the settings, remember that we just pick for the replication option redundant storage. We can click on replication, and here we're going to see that Azure automatically picks one location from my primary that I actually picked that location, but the secondary Azure automatically picked for me a different location, that it's the East US, and we can see here the replication option. My primary is the blue one, it's the West US data center, and my secondary is the East US. So all the content of the data is going to be replicated from the West US to the East US. So if something happens into my primary one, that is the West US, then Azure automatically will fail over to the East US. So I will not experience some downtime because of that when something happened in the hardware of my storage account, or something happened into my primary data center. Now let's take a look at just the files, like focus on the blob and the file service. If I scroll down from the overview blade, I can find the blob service. And in the blob service, we're going to work with containers. The containers are going to be basically folders. We can create as many containers, but just to just one level. We cannot create another container inside another one. So let's say that I'm creating a container here, and I'm going to create a container 1. We need to configure the public access level. We can choose between private, blob, or container. Let's pick just private. Private is just for the internal users to access the content of my blob files into my blob service. I can click on OK. That will create my container number 1 for me, and I can click on that container name, and I can start uploading some content for that. Now let me just switch to the whiteboard to explain a little bit the blob storage service. We are going to work on containers, as I told you before, but there is 3 main types of blobs that we can pick in our configuration. Those 3 types of blobs are: the first one, it's going to be the page blob, and page blob is just a design for hosting VHD files, virtual hard disk drives. If we're planning to migrate some on-prem virtual machines to the cloud, to the Azure cloud, we can just start in by migrating the VHD files, the virtual hard disk drive. So we can just use this storage account and using the blob service, and uploading into a specific container a page blob, and start uploading the files that we wanted. There's another type of blob, that it's the block blob, that it's designed for hosting media files like images or videos. So if we are planning for use this storage account and this blob service for hosting or streaming images or videos, we can just pick the blob. That configuration, or that picking of the type of the blob, it is when we're trying to upload the content to the container. And there is another type of blob that it's for logging purposes, and that is the append blob. Now let's switch back to the Azure Portal. Here, when I click on upload, I can see this new option, and I can click here to navigate through my local device and taking a look at the content. And for example, let me just move into the desktop, and let's say that I wanted to upload this MP4, this is a video. If I click on advanced, here I'm going to find the options of the blob type. Remember the page blob for VHDs, blob for media content like images or videos, and the append blob for logging purposes. So in this case, I'm okay with the blob. I'm trying to upload a video. If it detects that I'm trying to upload a VHD file, it's going to be into a page blob. So here I can select between the different block sizes. I'm okay with the defaults. I can click on upload, and that will start the uploading of my file. Now I can create another container and I can try to upload new files, different files. Those files can be PDF files, documents, images, videos, or any content that I wanted. So with any of these 4 types of services, I'm going to receive a different endpoint, a URL basically. So the endpoint construction, let me switch back to the whiteboard, and for the endpoints, for any of the 4 types of services, we are going to see that the endpoint construction is based on my storage account name, that blob for the blob service, that core.windows.net. The same applies for the file service, the storage account name, that file, that core.windows.net, and so on for the other 2 services, the table storage and the queue storage. A storage account name, that table, that core.windows.net, and storage account name, that queue, that core.windows.net. Now let's take a look at the file service. I can just scroll down, continuing scrolling down, and I'm going to find the file service there. Into the file service, we are going to work into a very similar structure like a regular ADDS file directory, working with files and folders. This time we are going to work into file shares. For example, I can create a new file share that, for example, the file share 1, I can apply a quota like 1 GB, for example. Now that I have a file share, I can start creating directories. For example, I can click on add a new directory, so I can start basically adding a new folder. In this case, can be folder 1. Now that I have a folder, this time I can nest the folders. I can create another directory inside the other. So this is basically emulating the file directory into a regular Windows operating system. So now that I have my file shared in the folder, I can just upload some content. This time I can upload, for example, a PDF file, and I can click on upload. So this is the purpose for this is just migrating the file shares that you have into your on-prem using the SMB protocol, but now this time to the cloud. So now that you have some content, you migrate the content, your files, your folder structure, your folder directory in the files. You can just assigning or mapping the file shares to your users using specific commands like PowerShell or the command prompt, and to make or address this type of connection. But this time, instead of using the regular ADDS into our on-prem, you are using your storage account to hosting that specific file structure using the file share. Okay, so basically with this we explaining the 2 main services that we can use into a general purpose storage account, Blob Storage and also File Storage. Thank you for your attention.